Welcome back to Inside Politics. Our guest today is Jim Squires, a distinguished journalist who's now written a novel called West End. A lot of people see analogies to Nashville and its political past. Jim, we talked in the first part of the segment, one of these characters does greatly resemble John J. Hooker, one of the most remarkable figures, I think you and I agree, in Tennessee history, politics, and business.
Well,
a larger-than-life figure.
A larger-than-life figure, and in one sense, a great entrepreneurial success from time to time. But if you knew him well from a political sense, any politician, he might have been the perfect leader. He thought he was going to be president, and a lot of us thought he ought to be. He is about as bright and articulate as anybody is ever. One of the best speakers I ever heard speak. He does it all off the cuff. Terrific. He's got a photographic memory, and he believes everything he says, which makes him very different from most of them. And he has come down on the right side of every issue, as far as I'm concerned, in my lifetime.
He sort of got caught up in the middle between the ongoing rivalry between the two newspapers in that town, which in your book are the Clarion and the Defender, much like the Tennessean and the Banner.
And those rivalries existed all over the South. The conservative newspaper and the Democratic one.
You didn't have to embellish that at all, did you?
No. But all of the things, they're not exactly things that happened in Nashville, the fight that they have, but that central issue of equal justice under the law, the resistance to ending Jim Crowism, the progress toward integrating the South and equalizing life here for everybody was a common theme all over the South. This story took place in Charlotte, St. Petersburg, Orlando, Washington, Boston. Every place I ever lived, there were these people.
Another main character in the book is Jack Hickenlooper, not to be confused with John Siegenthaler, the longtime publisher and editor of the Tennessean, one of your mentors. How difficult was it when you wrote that to sort of keep the Siegenthaler and Hickenlooper to be a compositor different? Was it hard?
Well,
you're so close to John
there were a lot of people like Siegenthaler. Obviously, I was not that close to, but what made him unique, I think, in the sense of newspaper publishers, was his close proximity to the Kennedys and his importance to that movement. They're always talking about Bill Clinton being the most popular white man among black Americans. I'm not sure it wasn't John Siegenthaler. He had decades-long relationship with them, stemming all the way back to when he went to Alabama for Bobby Kennedy to protect Rosa Parks and the people on the bus.
The book ends with the funeral of Jack Hickenlooper.
Well, if there's any one part of this book that it is not a composite, it's the last chapter. The death of John Siegenthaler was a great emotional moment for me, and his funeral was the most extraordinary public event I have ever attended in many instances. And you read this,
and it gave you the end of this book.
Gave me the end of this book, and I didn't want to change it and make it any. It is fictional. All the characters who talk in there don't exist. I made them all up. David Arthur is talking to people who
resembles you.
David Arthur resembles me, but also resembles all my friends for 40 years in journalism. We all lived the same life.
Did John Siegenthaler know you were writing this book?
No. Well, no, he did not know. John Siegenthaler knew about another book that I've written that includes all these same characters. If you go back and look at Secrets, which is all true, with real-life characters, really named people, then there is a sequel that's a piece of fiction.
That you're working on right now?
No, this would be the sequel. This would be the last one. The prequel I wrote over the last 20 years too, and it has not been published, and it has been read by a lot of people in the book world, and might get sold in New York, or it might end up as a publication of Old Hickory Press, which wouldn't be bad.
And that's the press, the publisher.
This is the first publication of Old Hickory Press.
And it's an online just-in-time publishing company.
Well, it is an online just-in-time publishing company, but that's the future of this business. And the book business is changing just like the music business did.
And that's a good thing?
That's a very good thing, because New York had become a closed shop You had to be there and of there and in there pretty much to get a book contract.
We talked about Nashville being a 2-newspaper town. I grew up in it. Lots of people who are still here did. Now we're a 1-newspaper town. Did we lose something in doing that? Has the city lost something in its political zest conversation?
This book explains this story. I thought this story of the death of newspapers was better told in fiction than it was in my first book. Read all about it.
You've got a character there that resembles Al Newhart, too.
Absolutely resembles Al Newhart. But this character represents what happened to the business. Basically, all of these old newspapers, the Banner, the Tennessean, all the Courier Journal, St. Pete Times, those papers were locally based with a local conscience, sort of local DNA. And they had to sit across the table every day at the Kiwanis Club from their advertisers and their readers. So they didn't gouge readers with raising advertising prices. If you had a bad economy, the newspaper didn't lay off its employees. It just took less for profit. Newspapers were profitable, and they could still be profitable today.
You've been quoted as saying greed killed.
Well, greed did kill. The greed being that companies like Al Newhart's Gannett went to Wall Street with a big tale of 15% growth every quarter, and the newspaper industry fell right in line and began to do that, and so they began to cut the key elements of what had made them survive. Their quality of their people, cut back how much paper and ink they were going to use, and basically diminished the product at a time when the digital world, the new world, was dawning, and new competition was coming on. So they committed suicide.
In the book, I couldn't help but feel as I read it that I was almost reading like a newspaper or a modern-day version of Margaret Mitchell's Gone with the Wind. That here once lived these noble people, noble things they were doing, and yet now that part of civilization is gone with the wind.
Well, I love this. I love these comparisons. I mean, to be compared to Gone with the Wind and all the King's Men is terrific.
Well, on a local level.
On a local level. But it's true in the sense. One of my early reviewers said this is a book about mankind, which I took as quite a compliment. He was a novelist himself.
We're talking with Jim Squires. He's the author of a new novel that everybody's talking about. It's about Nashville politics, although it's actually about a city called Bluff City, and about the title of the book is West End. Back to continue our conversation with Jim Squires, who also knows a few things about presidential politics. We'll talk about that when we come back to. Stay with us.